but what would be your read in this situation?
Kelly, at this point, we don't have any indication of a broader public safety concern. However, I do want to stress that we just don't know a lot right now. Again, we don't know if there is actually a hazardous substance that has been released into the Pentagon. If it has, we don't know if that happened accidentally because of a potential accidental spill, or if there was some sort of bad actor that brought that substance into the Pentagon. So we don't really know what, if anything, needs to or has been contained. We should pay attention to what federal, state, and local officials are putting on social media. So, for example, the Arlington County Fire Department and EMS should be advising the public about any broader public safety concerns. And we should hear about those sooner rather than later as these trained professionals conduct their work. I do want to emphasize that the individuals responding to this incident practice for this regularly. So there are a series of drills that are performed regularly, exercises with Pentagon personnel, people working there about what to do in these situations, and drills between, again, these various levels of responders, federal, state, and local. So the communications coming out of these officials' social media accounts will be critical. And, of course, we are thinking about all the people currently sheltering in place in the Pentagon who are waiting to hear if a hazardous substance has been released. There's just a very broad range of possibilities that could trigger these air detection systems, set off these alarms, and lead to this kind of response. So we shouldn't jump to any conclusions because there's so many hypotheticals here, but should feel pretty good that first responders responded so quickly and that the air detection systems activated and led to an appropriate response as far as we can tell.
This is why I always appreciate talking to you in these kinds of situations, Sam, because you lay out what we do and what we don't know and what we cannot speculate. So, Sam, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to go back to Ellie Watson. So, Ellie, you mentioned the south wing of the Pentagon. Where specifically is the Secretary of Defense's office? Would this have been impacted, by this evacuation or shelter in place at all?
From what we know so far, Kelly, the simple answer is we don't think so. The secretary is on the river side of the entrance on the third floor, but away from the corridors that have been told to shelter in place. We're told the whole building is kind of taking the shelter in place seriously, but as far as we know, the floors that have actually had to evacuate in the corridors are on a different side of the building. The different service branches kind of are spread around the building, and so you have different services on the south side where we think this potential incident or potential danger was first discovered. The secretary is on the riverside facing Washington, D.C. with a view of the monument and the river. We think that this incident, when first detected, was on a different side of the Pentagon.
Okay, appreciate the context and the update there, Ellie. I want to bring in Elliot Ackerman. He is a CBS News contributor. Elliot, you have actually worked in the Pentagon before, so you're hearing this information as it's developing. We have the shelter in place, the evacuation for some. You just heard Ellie talk about specifically where, at least at the moment, we can understand where this first was detected. So what's your first reaction upon hearing this?
Well, my first reaction, for those who aren't familiar with the Pentagon, I mean, it is an absolutely vast building. All of the offices have significant security protocols that I imagine they are engaging with right now. So there are probably evacuations going on in parts of the building that have nothing to do with this incident, and where people are sheltering in place. I imagine there's a very methodical process in place right now to get those people out of the building safely.
And so we, again, do not know. We know that this is an air quality detection issue. We do not know what kind of substance or anything at this point. But you hear that there's hazmat teams there. What right now would they be doing? You have so many people, as you mentioned, that are without information who are in the building right now. But for that team that's there, what would you expect that they are doing at this very moment?
Well, they're going to be going through a set of procedures that are extremely well rehearsed, and I think first and foremost is going to be trying to understand, the nature of the threat. So being extremely methodical in their testing, in assessing the situation, and in making sure that everyone who could be affected by this incident is safe. And then I think gradually they'll be figuring out how to mitigate that threat and how to get people who are inside the Pentagon out of the building safely.
And so we talked with Ellie about this a little bit, but in your own experience, I mean, this is an incredibly secure building. Who gets in there? What is the protocol for someone to actually enter the building?
Well, I think, it basically has security protocols that are, equal to, if not higher than what you would see at an airport. And although a huge amount of people work at the Pentagon, many of those enhanced security protocols were put in place after September 11th. So it's tough to speculate, if this came in and how it came in from an outside point of view. But the security there is pretty tight. It's not easy to get in the Pentagon if you're not authorized personnel.
Yeah, Elliot, I also want to ask you, I mean, we are learning this information as it is coming in. What would be your concern? What could they be looking for in this moment? They're obviously trying to detect whether this is dangerous or not dangerous, but what would be your concern here?
So I think any of the first responders here absolutely need to be treating this incident with the highest levels of concern. So, we have to assume that this is some type of a real threat, some type of a, chemical weapon. But that's going to take time to understand what this is. And I think obviously, there's a lot of confusion, as we can see in our own reporting, trying to understand exactly what's going on. And I think the first thing those first responders are going to be doing is going to be trying to mitigate that confusion and understand exactly what the nature of the threat is that they're facing. Obviously, the U.S. is at war right now with Iran. I mean, it's easy to speculate of all the many things this could be. But the first thing that has to happen is those first responders need to figure out exactly what is causing this problem.
All right, Elliot, really appreciate you joining us and giving your perspective and some context of the situation. Now, if you are just joining us at home, just to recap, the Pentagon is on lockdown right now due to a hazmat situation. There are some individuals that have been evacuated from the building, some that are sheltering in place, and this is all due to an air quality detection issue. We do not have information right now about what that specific substance is. So I want to go back to CBS News national security contributor Samantha Vinograd. And so, Sam, talk to me about some of the situations that you have seen that might have been similar in the past and what kind of protocols they would have followed there.
Sure. So this is not the first time the Pentagon has dealt with a potential hazmat situation. I believe back in 2018 and 2005, there were concerns about hazardous material being mailed to the Department of Defense's mailroom. There were concerns about ricin, and there were also real concerns about anthrax entering the building through the mail facility. So the Pentagon has dealt with these kind of situations before, primarily through the mailroom. It is factually the case that visitors entering the Pentagon don't routinely, for example, go through screening for things like anthrax. That's not how the screening system or the security protocols for visitors walking into the Pentagon work. I've entered the Pentagon more times than I can count, and screening for chemical, biological, radioactive, nuclear, or explosive devices just really varies in terms of how that screening process works, but certainly trying to get that kind of substance into the Pentagon via a walk-in is really, something that we're thinking about, but we don't know if that's, in fact, what triggered these air detection sensors. I do want to emphasize that the Pentagon has, again, a multi-layered response system in place to try to detect potential hazardous materials and then respond to them. There are environmental sensors throughout the Pentagon that are geared towards detecting air quality issues and other environmental changes that could be indicative of some sort of hazardous material in the air. At the same time, because of previous incidents and because of the way that these kinds of substances can travel, there is extensive mail screening for any mail that comes to the Department of Defense's or Department of War now's mailroom. And then, of course, we have the actual emergency response protocols that Elliot so articulately walked through. So, again, this multi-layered response has been in place for some time. And so, of course, a potential walk-in threat is something we're all thinking about, but the mail-in threat or just some kind of accident, some kind of spill is something that we're thinking about, too. So I think it is, too early to try to map out the range of possibilities here. And as Elliot also said, emergency responders are going to treat this like this is an actual hazmat situation until they know that it is not, Kelly.
Absolutely. Caution is always the best way. And I appreciate you bringing up those previous instances because I know I'm sure a lot of people watching, it triggered in my memory hearing about that and also the process that came after that. So Sam, stay where you are. I do want to go back to Ellie Watson right now. So Ellie, you have some new reporting, I understand. What's the latest?
Well, Sean Parnell, the chief Pentagon spokesperson, put out a statement to the public, not just to news outlets, but to the public, that the Pentagon has sophisticated systems to ensure the safety of the building and its occupants. Those systems have detected an air quality issue necessitating precautionary measures until we determine its significance. The department is executing standard protection protocols, including a shelter-in-place order for the affected area. Response teams are in place and ready to support building occupants. What we have seen from an alert that went out within the Pentagon is that employees are told to shelter in place and listen to the big voice announcements. I do want to explain that a little bit. When there is a situation in the Pentagon, there's kind of an intercom system, if you can remember when you were in school, the principal's office. There's a big voice that'll come over and on the speakers tell you what's going on. I've only been in the building one time when that was used, and it was when a Pentagon police agent was stabbed just outside of the Pentagon because, again, there are Pentagon police officers all around maintaining levels of security before you get into the Pentagon.
You're right to compare it for us who have never been in that situation to the intercom at school, because that does bring up a lot of memories there. In terms of what those folks that are experiencing who are in the building or have been evacuated. We talked about this a little bit earlier. There's not a lot of information coming through. As you said, they're supposed to listen to what's coming over those the loud intercom system. Do we have any indication of whether the situation has changed with those that have been asked to shelter in place and evacuated, or everything is status quo while the hazmat team is investigating?
Everything that I know of is status quo while the hazmat team is investigating. The sources I've spoken to have been told to shelter in place, are doing so pretty calmly as this is determined what this incident is. They have not been given a lot of information other than what we have now reported on air, that they are being told to shelter in place.
Okay. And as we think about what comes next, so the hazmat team is doing their investigation right now. In your experience, your reporting, what might come next after that? Once they've determined what has caused the air quality detection issue?
I think what they may do is take different samples if they find something, and then make sure they test individuals who were in the affected area. But as of right now, we still don't have any indication of what this air quality issue might have been. So it's pretty early to tell you what next steps would be.
And I know you're probably weren't reporting with the Pentagon when those incidents that Sam Vinograd mentioned, but this isn't the first time that the Pentagon has endured this kind of situation before. There are protocols in place. And so based on the fact that they have seen these types of issues before, what are some of the protocols that are in place right now that they are undergoing? I mean, this does seem to be playing out from your reporting, from the others that we have spoken to during this special report, that things are going to plan, if you will, based on their security protocols.
I think they'll try and take account of everybody, make sure that everyone in their office is doing okay. Even if they were told to evacuate, there will be some sort of all call to make sure that people who were in each office that was potentially affected are okay. And then there will be hopefully updates throughout the day on just if something was detected, what that is, if it's a false alarm, there will be communicated to throughout the day.
Now, Ellie, normally in a situation like this, we would be talking to you. You would have been at the Pentagon, but as of now, that's not where you're reporting from because of access limitations for journalists. Can you just explain a little bit more of where we would have normally found you, maybe if this was a year ago or so?
That's right. We, as a network and with several other networks, didn't sign a Pentagon press restriction policy that would have kind of, in terms of what our lawyers think, prevented the journalists from asking about information that the department didn't want to get out. We were a little careful with the language the Pentagon presented to us, didn't like it, sent it back. They said, this is our language. There is currently a lawsuit going on to help potentially get us back in the building, but as of right now, we're reporting from outside of the building. And I will say, I was not there for 9/11, but there were journalists in the building the day of 9/11 who, with everyone in the building, experienced what happened, and we're outside reporting on the up-to-date details.
Ellie, I really appreciate the context and you keeping us up to date on the developments on the ground. I want you to stay with us. I want to go back to Samantha Vinograd. Sam, you know, you're emphasizing as we've been talking to you throughout the past half hour that we don't know yet specifically what caused this air quality detection issue. And I think that's very important to emphasize. But they are taking this very seriously. There are a set of protocols. You know, why in this situation, and it's the Pentagon, would you be taking this with such care and seriousness?
Well, when there's a potential hazmat situation, first responders and trained professionals are going to respond with the highest level of urgency until they determine that there's not actually a live incident. So certainly right now, generally, we are in a heightened threat environment, a range of international as well as domestic threat actors with capabilities with hazardous materials. However, even if we weren't, these trained individuals are going to get on scene whenever there is potential detection, likely identify some sort of incident commander, and then from there ensure that they ascertain whether there is actively a live substance that has led to the hazmat trigger. So they are going to conduct that assessment with urgency and with care based on established protocols. They're likely going to try to isolate the range of space that could be potentially impacted by this hazardous materials incident. And they're also going to try to ascertain what the actual potential threat is. Is it anthrax? Is it a noxious gas? Is it some sort of radioactive material? And they are going to work with the utmost urgency and the utmost care until they rule out that there is actually a hazardous material present. If they determine that it is a false alarm, to be clear, Kelly, they also have to think about their communications to individuals who are sheltering in place or have evacuated to ensure that there's not kind of some sort of mass panic or unsafe method in which individuals return to work or return into the building. So the communication about even a false alarm is actually part of the hazmat response protocols and training. And so we're waiting to see if this was a false alarm or if there is actually some sort of hazardous substance presence. I do want to note it could take some time to know that, not only because this was an air detection issue. This was not a mail screening issue where the potential substance or powder, for example, could be tested immediately. It may take some time to ascertain what triggered the what we think are the environmental sensors, and then from there to communicate with individuals about how to safely return just to their normal duties.
And when you say take some time, are we talking hours? Are we talking longer than that? I mean, obviously, it's going to depend.
It's really hard to know, Kelly. It really depends. It depends on how soon they can ascertain, which sensors went. They know which sensors went off ostensibly, how many. They know what kinds of hazardous substances could trigger those air detection sensors. They are likely continuing to test the air to see if there's some sort of presence of a hazardous material, and then if so, to narrow down what that is. But it depends on a lot of factors, so it's a little hard to speculate on that. Hopefully, they'll know sooner rather than later. They can probably tell sooner rather than later if there was some sort of system malfunction. They can probably see that on the back end. So it depends. Sorry not to have a clear answer for you, but certainly the individuals sheltering in place, not to mention the friends, family, and loved ones of those individuals want to know as soon as possible that, folks haven't been exposed to some sort of hazardous material.
You're very right. I mean, my thoughts are with those folks who don't have that information right now, that are thinking about their loved ones inside that building. And Sam, you never have to apologize for giving us the accurate information. I want you to stay there. But since we just passed the top of the hour, it's 12:05, I do want to give a recap for those that have recently joined us of where we are, what we know, and what we don't know. So currently, the Pentagon is on lockdown due to a hazmat situation. There was an air quality issue detected. We do not know what that substance is, whether it is dangerous or whether it is not, whether this is an intentional incident or if it was an accident. What we do know is that the individuals who are inside the Pentagon, remember, there are thousands of people working at the Pentagon each day. A portion have been evacuated, and then there is currently a shelter in place right now. And those that are there have been told there's not a lot of information coming in, but they are hearing those updates from an intercom system. Ellie Watson, our reporter earlier, described it as something that you might hear in school, right? We've all been there in that situation. You can remember that. I do want to go back to James Laporta. So this is a developing situation, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention that there is a war going on with Iran that's happening in the background. The president earlier today said that there would be further strikes tonight. You would assume that there are many individuals at the Pentagon that would be involved in something like that. Does a situation that we're watching unfold impact those operations at all?
So the short answer is no. And for people who might not know, the operations that are being currently ran against the Iranians is actually ran out of Tampa, Florida, where U.S. Central Command is headquartered, and with U.S. forces in the region. So even given this, whatever this incident is at the Pentagon, it doesn't disrupt any sort of current or ongoing or even planning operations that the U.S. might have for Iran. Those operations would continue on. So there's not an interruption there. We're still waiting to see what is going on at the Pentagon. I have been in touch with a couple of my sources. They're still waiting to hear the all clear. So at the moment, we're all still sort of waiting to see what comes out of this. But at the moment, no. Operations against Iran are not disrupted, and folks inside the Pentagon are still waiting for an all clear.
Okay, really appreciate the update and the context there. James, we're going to have you stick with us, but I do want to bring in right now CBS News national security analyst Aaron McLean. Aaron, is always great to have your insight and your expertise in moments like this. We did just talk about the war with Iran. I was asking James if there is any impact to operations. He said no, based on where those operations are run out of. But can you give us the latest in terms of where we are with the war with Iran? We have seen we're close to a peace deal. We're not. Strikes potentially happening. What's the latest that you're hearing?
We anticipate another round of American strikes targeting Iran tonight. We anticipate that because the president said he's going to do it. And this would be, if it happens, the third straight day. Of course, this began after that Apache helicopter went down in the water in the vicinity of the Strait of Hormuz. But it appears to have changed in character, with the president now saying essentially that he's frustrated with the pace of negotiations. So in his mind, these strikes seem designed to incentivize, to bring the Iranians to a faster and more accommodating posture in the diplomatic process. I agree with James. I don't think there's any operational impact on the war based on what's going on in the Pentagon. Of course, we don't know yet what's happening, but one of the dogs that hasn't barked yet from Iran is international terrorism. I've actually been surprised that since February the 28th, we have not seen international terrorist incidents sponsored by the Iranians. So I'm sure that is on the mind of security officials in Washington.
Yeah, it is a fair point. That being said, want to emphasize that we at this point do not have any indication that this is an act of terrorism or anything like that. Everything is unknown right now. It is simply an air quality detection issue. But to your point, Aaron, it is something that these folks who are investigating right now, that Hazmat team, is proceeding with care. Aaron, I want you to stay close, but at this moment, I want to bring in CBS News law enforcement contributor Richard Esposito. He's with us on the phone right now. So I just mentioned the Hazmat team that is investigating what has caused this air quality detection issue. How does a response like this unfold? Walk us through what's happening on the ground right now.
So there's a multi-layered response to an incident like this. Obviously, the Pentagon has its own public safety team, which is trained in everything from explosive detection and removal to hazardous materials and the testing of those materials. Right now, they've begun, by testing the sensors, et cetera. They are confident that's a likely cause, but they're not going to determine that for a couple of hours. What happens next is they will bring in the resources from outside the Pentagon as needed, the surrounding public safety, emergency management people, fire people. They're all trained and know how to coordinate with the Pentagon. So you'll get this multi-layered response. There are protocols, they're in a book, they're tested and trained on. Because it's the Pentagon and it's a sensitive location, they'll pay close attention to that, and the military will take charge of the scene.
And just a quick follow-up there. We were talking to Samantha Vinograd before, and she highlighted that the Pentagon has experienced issues like this in the past. There were anthrax concerns. You mentioned this Hazmat team. They are investigating this, that there's a multi-layered system, and that it could take hours, perhaps longer, to feel secure, especially given, the national security piece of the Pentagon. What will give them the all clear? What is sort of that metric that will then let that team know, okay, we can let the people who are sheltering in place right now go?
So, the first thing they'll do is the testing. And some of those results, the initial results, with anthrax, there'll be a set of results, but they could change. Those will come back fairly quickly. But for total security, it's going to be finding if a sensor went bad, malfunctioned, and which sensors malfunctioned, and then finding out why. The why part is, and by the way, the FBI is fully up to speed on this, and they are also paying close attention to it, because if it had become a criminal matter, they still would be deeply involved. But it's really about checking those sensors, unless they find a substance, in which case the protocols change rapidly.
All right, Richard Esposito, really appreciate you joining us on the phone and giving us the context. We are going to continue to monitor the lockdown at the Pentagon. Remember, a shelter-in-place order is in effect due to a hazmat situation. CBS News has learned an air quality issue was detected, but we do not know what the substance is. Our coverage will continue on CBS News 24/7, your local news, and tonight on the CBS Evening News. This has been a CBS News Special Report. I'm Kelly O'Grady.
The only way to get a 360-degree understanding of America is to get out there in America. There really is no swing at all when it comes to the priorities of everyday people. We care about how secure our job is, whether we can plan on retiring with dignity, whether our kids can have a brighter future than we have today. These are the fundamentals of American life, and I think they can be again.
Why doesn't he tell Republicans, come into my office, let's hammer this thing out?
Margaret, it's a totally fair question.
Politics isn't a game. Why are you opposed to this deployment?
It's unconstitutional.
Politics is about policy. I'm a voracious consumer of information, and I'm impatient. I don't like to be spun. To be moderator of Face the Nation means bringing the most powerful stakeholders to the table to become better informed.
We don't want to accept that there's evil that walks amongst us, but it does.
You know how when you meet somebody, you can't put your finger on it, but something's not right?
You never know what anybody is capable of. I am a serial killer who's only killed once.
Did you think when this goes public, this town's gonna be shocked?
Absolutely.
When you're dealing with a 30-year-old cold case, it seems like there's not a lot of hope.
We knew there was a monster out there and we were going to find him and get him.
Look at him just coming around the corner like that. We started tracking the area.
When did this accident scene become a crime scene?
Police!
You called him a lying liar who lies about lying.
Do you know why we're stopping you today?
What makes you so sure that you stabbed your sister while you were sleepwalking?
I never got a chance to see her one last time.
Such injustice. I can't believe they did this to her.
But no matter how hard it gets, never give up.
I'm Natalie Morales with 48 Hours. Did you have anything to do with Joanna Hunter's death?
This is a family that just wants justice.
I'm Tony DeCopel from a region at war tonight.
To tell the story,
Hello up there.
You have to be there, seeing it firsthand.
I'm Tony. I work for CBS.
Can you clarify what this war is about? How do you avoid this becoming a death trap?
This war only seems to be accelerating.
The CBS Evening News with Tony DeCopel.
Welcome back to CBS News 24/7. I'm Mugo Odigwe. We are still following a breaking news situation out of the Pentagon. This is a post from the Arlington Fire Department. It talks about a hazmat situation at the Pentagon and that the teams there are responding. This happened, we're told, just around 11 a.m. Eastern time, and we're looking live right now at the Pentagon. You can kind of see on the right side of your screen several vehicles there with flashing lights. Earlier, we saw 2 fire trucks at the scene as well. We know some people in that building have been told to shelter in place. Others were evacuated. But right now, I want to bring in CBS News correspondent Chanel Call. Chanel, what is the latest that we know right now? I know still a lot of questions about exactly what's going on out there.
Yeah, so Mugo, we're working hard to figure out exactly what is happening inside. Obviously, communication is a bit of an issue here, but our latest reporting now indicates that multiple floors and corridors have been locked down inside the Pentagon due to this ongoing hazmat situation that is currently being investigated. You mentioned this. It all started around 11 a.m. That's when employees inside the Pentagon, and think about this, there are thousands of people that go to work there every day, got this email saying that there was this hazmat situation that is currently being investigated, and then people specifically who were on floors 2 to 5 and inside corridors 4, 5, and 6, they were told to shelter in place, not to leave their offices until an official all clear was issued. Again, that hasn't happened to our understanding just yet. This is still a very active, very fluid situation. The latest information that we have from the Pentagon itself comes from the chief spokesperson there, Sean Parnell, releasing a statement. I'll read you part of it. It says, the Pentagon has sophisticated systems to ensure the safety of the building and its occupants. Those systems have detected an air quality issue necessitating precautionary measures until we determine its significance. And keep in mind, you know, this is one of the most secure buildings in the country, Muga. There are thousands of people that go to work here every day. There are 5 floors, there are 5 sides, there are 10 corridors inside this building. So quite a large premises for officials to have to understand. Some of those people were evacuated, unclear where to and how they're doing at this point. Still waiting for some of those key details. But I think the big question right now that we're still waiting for an answer on is what is that material that they were concerned about and are currently investigating? Was it suspicious or not?
Hoping we get some answers to that soon. Chanel Call, thank you so much. Let's bring in CBS News Pentagon reporter Eleanor Watson. She's been following this from the very start, and she actually gave us the first information we had about people being told to shelter in place and others being told to evacuate. Have you learned anything new so far today, Ellie?
Well, from our sources, we've learned that they're still sheltering in place. The all clear has not been given. As Sean Parnell, the chief Pentagon spokesperson, said in his statement, they're taking the precautionary measures after an air quality issue was detected. The precautionary measures include that shelter in place. Several floors and corridors have been told to stay in one place, not go to the bathroom, not take meetings in different parts of the Pentagon, but to do any meetings they may have virtually if they can. They are to listen to the big voice announcements in the Pentagon. There's an intercom speaker that relays announcements when there is a situation like this. They're to listen to that for the all clear to be given. We've heard from sources that the testing of whatever may have been discovered will take some time, and that employees are told to shelter in place during that time.
Yeah. Ellie, I've never been inside the Pentagon. I know you have multiple times. Do we know which corner, which side of that building this air quality issue may be impacting the most?
From what we know from our sources, the affected areas seem to be on the more south side of the Pentagon, away from the area that faces Washington, D.C. It's important just for context, the Secretary of Defense's office is on the north side, closer to the river, the Potomac River. As far as we know, that's not within the affected area, but there are several corridors, 4, 5, 6 on the other side of the Pentagon that have been told to shelter in place. The Pentagon's massive. I mean, to get from one place to another, if you were to take the outer ring, which would take you the farthest around, that it could take 30 minutes to walk the full outer ring. You have to go inside to make the quickest route around. So It's 17 miles, I think, of walkways through the Pentagon. So it's not as if this air quality issue has affected the whole Pentagon, but the Pentagon has told people to take precautions and certain areas to shelter in place.
Yeah, and just going off of what you mentioned there, just how big this building is, thousands of people who work there, how were they able to coordinate and to let people know, some of those who had to evacuate and others who were told, hey, you got to stay in the building and shelter in place? How did they get that message out?
I think there is an alert system within the Pentagon. I've been there before when we had offices in the Pentagon, when there has been a situation where they've alerted through the computers and over the intercom system to stay in one place, to shelter in place. There may be an incident. So there is a communication system that'll get to the thousands of employees in there. What the employees who had to evacuate say, though, is that they weren't necessarily told why, but they did follow instructions, know that the Pentagon police officers, they have a whole Pentagon Police Force Protection Agency there. Those officers were telling them, hey, evacuate. And we are told by our sources that some of those police officers were wearing face masks at the time they told them to evacuate because of potentially this air quality issue.
Yeah, and Ellie, we are obviously still waiting to get more information as to what this air quality issue is, and we don't want to speculate, but what do you think would come next after all this? With people being told in the building to shelter in place, others being told to evacuate, what's the next move here?
I think you've seen that the Arlington Fire Department is on scene with their hazmat units, that they will work with the Pentagon Police Force Protection Agency to detect whatever sensors may have picked up something in the Pentagon and to test where that would have originated from, if it is a substance, what kind of substance, but that testing and detection could take a few hours, we're told. So the precautionary measures, until they know what this is, if it is anything, are to shelter in place.
Yeah, if it is anything, again, we just want to specify here, we don't want to speculate until we get more information from officials. Eleanor Watson, thank you so much. And now I want to bring in CBS News National Security Coordinating Producer James Laporta. James, what more can you tell us about what we're learning?
Yeah, so latest we learned is that the Pentagon staffers who are sheltering in place, they were told that this could take 1 to 2 hours in order to sort of test these sensing capabilities. But what's interesting, and the other thing that we've learned, is when this original email went out just before 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, that they categorized it as being severe. So whatever this is, and this could all turn out to be nothing, but when the email went out, it was categorized as being a severe incident. So again, we're all sort of waiting to see, perhaps this turns out to be nothing, but the Pentagon is taking it very seriously. You know, people were told to shelter in place in corridors 4, 5, 6, and 7, and from floors 2 to 5 through A and E rings. So that is a large tranche of the Pentagon. And like my colleague Ellie Watson said, some Pentagon staffers have been evacuated, some have been told to shelter in place. But so at this moment, the all clear has not been given.
Yeah, and James, you said something important there, that just the fact that the Pentagon is taking this very seriously. It was classified as severe. It goes without saying we're in the middle of a war. And again, no speculation here, but do you think that's part of why they are taking this as seriously as they are?
That's hard to say. I don't think we don't have any sort of causation that one affects the other. There are protocols that the Pentagon Force Protection Agency, which is the lead agency for safeguarding and protecting personnel at the Pentagon, they have their own set of sort of categories. Absolutely, world events could heighten security. Military bases have what we call force protection levels. But I think in this particular incident, whatever triggered these sensors, it was categorized as severe. And I don't, while absolutely they're paying attention to what's going on in Iran, I don't think the operations Iran is affecting, one's not affecting the other. But that's a good question.
And I'm also curious, too, about how this could have happened. I mean, again, this is the Pentagon we're talking about. I assume there's a lot of security there. So any indication as we wait for more information as to where this hazardous material or hazardous situation, where it could have originated from?
Those are all unknowns. I mean, yes, as you correctly point out, the Pentagon is one of the most secure facilities in the D.C. area. You can't just walk in. If you try, you'll be met with men with guns. So it's very secure. But they, particularly after September 11th, I mean, the sides of the Pentagon were actually reinforced, and security has been tight there ever since. And so they have capabilities to detect, the one thing that they safeguard against is what we call CBRN, which is chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear threats, or explosive threats. Yeah. So there's sensors throughout the building that are constantly monitoring for any sort of sabotage from those elements. But no, they take these things very seriously to safeguard the personnel that work there.
Okay, as they should, of course. James Laporta, thank you so much for your time today. Appreciate your insight. And again, if you are just joining us, we continue to follow breaking news out of the Pentagon, a hazmat situation there. And of course, it has led to some people being evacuated, others being told to shelter in place. We'll continue to monitor the situation out there for you and bring you more information as we get them. Stay with us on CBS News 24/7. We'll be right back.
This Tony Sunday, curtain going up on the musical Ragtime, plus Steven Spielberg's Alien Adventure, and a taste of honey.
The only way to get a 360-degree understanding of America is to get out there in America. There really is no swing at all when it comes to the priorities of everyday people. We care about how secure our job is, whether we can plan on retiring with dignity, whether our kids can have a brighter future than we have today. These are the fundamentals of American life, and I think they can be again.
Chilling with the queen, her name is Gayle King.
Hey! CBS
Morning.
See you at 7.
CBS Morning.
CBS Morning.
What she said.
Eric Richins was found dead in his home.
The family had been alerted by Eric that if something happened to him, to look at Corey.
Why would Corey Richins want her husband dead? What jurors on the case say led to their verdict.
I was like, seriously? Now we've seen just about everything in this trial.
48 Hours, now streaming on CBS and Paramount+.
I'm Adriana Diaz.
And I'm Kelly O'Grady.
Join us right here
for the perfect start to your weekend.
Watch CBS Saturday morning
on CBS and streaming on Paramount+.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
I'm Major Garrett in Washington, inviting you to the Takeout. Politics, policy, people, and pop culture served up weeknights. What's on the menu? Plenty. The day's happenings with curiosity, informality, and humor. It's serious discussion, but we do not take ourselves too seriously. Who is a better speaker, Mike Johnson or you? Oh, come on. Join me on the Takeout. Streaming right here on CBS News 24/7.
A man convicted in the arson death of a billionaire in Monaco reinvents himself and decades later orders a hit in New Mexico.
He kept asking me if I knew somebody that could kill his wife.
You think he targeted her?
Yeah.
This isn't the first time he's been in question of a heinous crime.
48 Hours, now streaming on CBS and Paramount+.
CBS Mornings.
What she said.
CBS Mornings on CBS and where else? Paramount Plus. See you at 7.
CBS Mornings.
President Donald Trump says the U.S. dropped $250 million worth of bombs on Iran last night, and he expects the bombing against Iran to be even bigger and more powerful tonight.
We dropped $250 million worth of bombs on them last night. You know, the whole thing is crazy. But they're really in submission. They just don't know it yet. Yeah, there will be more bombing tonight. It'll be bigger.